Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the tension in the air, even though no one said a word? Or maybe you've watched someone's smile fade just slightly, sensing something was wrong before they even spoke? The answer to these experiences lies in social intelligence, the hidden language that exists beneath every conversation, gesture, and interaction. This transformative skill is the key to unlocking deeper, more meaningful connections both personally and professionally. But what exactly is social intelligence? And why is it so crucial in today's world where we're more connected than ever, yet somehow feel more isolated? Social intelligence is often misunderstood. It's not about manipulation or reading minds. Instead, it's a refined ability to perceive, interpret, and respond to the subtle cues that people constantly broadcast, the unspoken messages that reveal their true thoughts, feelings, and intentions. It's the difference between hearing words and understanding meaning. Many people mistakenly believe that social intelligence is an innate talent. You're either born charismatic or you're not. This couldn't be further from the truth. Social intelligence is a skill that can be developed and honed over time, much like a muscle that grows stronger with regular exercise. By cultivating this skill, you'll find yourself navigating social situations with unprecedented ease, building trust instantly, and creating connections that truly matter. The benefits of mastering social intelligence extend far beyond making small talk at parties. In your personal life, it can help you build stronger relationships by allowing you to truly understand what your loved ones need, even when they can't express it themselves. You'll be able to resolve conflicts before they escalate, offer support in exactly the way it's needed, and create a level of intimacy that most people only dream of. Professionally, social intelligence is the secret weapon of great leaders, successful negotiators, and influential communicators. It's the skill that allows you to read the room, adapt your approach on the fly, and inspire others to follow your vision. As you embark on this journey to enhance your social intelligence, you'll discover that it's not just about understanding others. It's about transforming how you show up in the world. You'll learn to decode body language, interpret vocal patterns, recognize emotional states, and respond with precision and empathy. This guide will provide you with practical tools, real-world exercises, and deep insights to help you develop a socially intelligent mindset. In the chapters that follow, we'll explore the foundations of reading people, delve into the science of nonverbal communication, and uncover the subtle patterns that reveal true intentions. You'll learn powerful techniques for building instant rapport, navigating difficult conversations, and creating connections that last. But before we dive into these advanced techniques, we must first turn our attention to the most important person you'll ever read: yourself. As we close this introductory chapter, ask yourself, are you ready to see beyond the surface? To understand the hidden dynamics in every interaction? To build connections so deep that people feel truly seen and understood by you? The journey ahead will challenge your assumptions and expand your perception, but the rewards are immeasurable. In the next chapter, we'll begin by exploring the fascinating world of self-awareness. Because to truly read others, you must first understand the lens through which you see the world. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more social intelligence strategies that will transform your relationships and influence. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Reading Others, Knowing Yourself. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of seeing your reflection, you see a complex map of your own biases, assumptions, emotional triggers, and communication patterns. This map, often invisible to us in daily life, is the lens through which you interpret every interaction. To become truly skilled at reading others, you must first understand this map intimately, because you can't see others clearly if you don't recognize your own blind spots. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of social intelligence. It's the ability to observe your own reactions, recognize your patterns, and understand how your past experiences color your present perceptions. Think about it. Have you ever misread someone's mood because you were stressed? Or assumed someone was angry when they were actually just focused? These misreadings happen because we project our internal state onto others. One of the most powerful techniques for developing this awareness is emotional tracking. Throughout your day, pause at regular intervals and check in with yourself. What are you feeling right now? What do you feel in your body? What triggered this emotion? By becoming intimate with your own emotional landscape, you create a baseline that allows you to distinguish between your feelings and the feelings you're picking up from others. Another critical element is understanding your perceptual filters. We all have them, the unconscious frameworks we use to categorize and interpret social information. For instance, if you grew up in a household where silence meant anger, you might interpret someone's quiet demeanor as hostility when they're simply introverted or thoughtful. These filters were formed by your unique experiences, culture, and conditioning. Take time to identify your social assumptions. Do you assume people who avoid eye contact are dishonest? That crossed arms always mean defensiveness? That extroverts are always confident? Each of these assumptions might be true sometimes, but treating them as universal rules will cause you to misread people constantly. The most skilled readers of people hold their interpretations lightly, always staying open to alternative explanations. As you deepen your self-awareness, you'll also need to confront your emotional triggers, those specific behaviors or situations that cause you to react strongly. Maybe it's when someone interrupts you, or when you perceive disrespect, or when someone seems disinterested. These triggers create emotional noise that drowns out your ability to accurately read others. By identifying and working through these triggers, you clear the static from your social radar. One effective practice is reflective journaling after significant social interactions. Write down what happened, how you interpreted it, how you felt, and how you responded. Then, challenge yourself to come up with alternative interpretations. This exercise reveals patterns in how you read people and helps you recognize when your interpretations might be colored by your own experiences rather than reflecting reality. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate your perspective. That's impossible. Instead, you're learning to recognize when your perspective might be influencing your reading of others. You're developing what we call cognitive empathy, the ability to understand that others see the world differently than you do, and that difference is valid. By the end of this chapter, you should have a clearer understanding of your own social patterns and biases. You're developing the self-awareness necessary to read others accurately. But this is just the foundation. To truly master the art of reading people, we need to understand the science behind human communication. In the next chapter, we'll explore the fascinating world of nonverbal communication, the silent language that accounts for over 70% of all human interaction. You'll discover how to decode body language, facial microexpressions, and spatial dynamics to reveal what people are really thinking and feeling. Chapter 2. The Silent Language, Decoding Nonverbal Communication. Picture yourself as a detective examining a crime scene, but instead of physical evidence, you're gathering nonverbal clues. Every gesture, every shift in posture, every facial flicker is a piece of the puzzle. Most people move through their days blind to this rich source of information, but you're about to learn to see what others miss. Nonverbal communication is the foundation of reading people. Research shows that 70 to 93% of all communication is nonverbal, meaning that the vast majority of what people tell you isn't coming from their words at all. It's broadcast through their body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and use of space. Master this silent language, and you'll understand what people really mean, even when their words say something different. Let's start with body language, the most obvious form of nonverbal communication. But here's where most people go wrong. They memorize isolated signals without understanding context. Crossed arms means defensive. Leaning in means interested. These simplistic interpretations will lead you astray more often than not. The truth is far more nuanced. Effective body language reading requires looking for clusters of signals. A single gesture means little, but 3 or 4 signals pointing in the same direction reveal the truth. For instance, someone might cross their arms simply because they're cold, but if they're also leaning away from you, avoiding eye contact, and creating physical barriers between you, you're seeing genuine discomfort or disagreement. One powerful concept to understand is baseline behavior. Everyone has their own natural way of moving, gesturing, and positioning themselves. Some people are naturally expressive, using their hands constantly. Others are more reserved. The key is to observe someone's baseline, how they normally behave, and then watch for deviations from that baseline. These deviations signal that something has changed emotionally or mentally. Pay special attention to what's called self-soothing behaviors, the small gestures people make when they're stressed or uncomfortable. These include touching their face or neck, playing with jewelry or hair, rubbing their arms, or adjusting their clothing. These behaviors are unconscious attempts to calm themselves, and they spike when someone is nervous, lying, or experiencing discomfort. Facial expressions are perhaps the richest source of nonverbal information. The human face can produce over 10,000 distinct expressions, and researchers have identified 7 universal emotions that appear the same across all cultures: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, and contempt. But here's what makes faces so revealing: microexpressions. Microexpressions are brief, involuntary facial expressions that flash across a person's face for just January 25th th to January 5th th of a second. They reveal true emotions before the conscious mind can mask them. You might see a flash of anger cross someone's face before they smile and say, "I'm fine." That microexpression is the truth. The smile is the performance. To develop your ability to spot microexpressions, practice watching videos of people on mute and try to identify what emotions flash across their faces. Pay particular attention to the areas around the eyes, which are hardest to control consciously. Genuine smiles, for instance, always involve the eyes. The corners crinkle, creating what are called crow's feet. Fake smiles only involve the mouth. Another crucial element is proxemics, the use of personal space. Every culture has different norms, but in general, people control their space strategically. When someone feels comfortable and trusting, they allow you into their personal space, roughly 1.5 to 4 feet. When they're uncomfortable, they create distance. Watch how people orient their body toward or away from others. We unconsciously point our torso and feet toward what interests us and away from what doesn't. Touch is another powerful nonverbal signal, though it must be interpreted carefully within cultural and contextual boundaries. The presence or absence of touch, the type of touch, its duration and pressure, all communicate volumes about relationships, power dynamics, and emotional states. As you practice reading nonverbal communication, remember this critical principle. Context is everything. A person might cross their arms because they're defensive, cold, comfortable, or mimicking your posture. Your job is to gather multiple signals, consider the context, and look for patterns before drawing conclusions. By the end of this chapter, you should have a solid grasp of the fundamentals of nonverbal communication. You understand the importance of baseline behavior, signal clusters, and contextual interpretation. But nonverbal cues are only part of the story. To truly read people, you need to understand the subtle messages hidden in how they speak. In the next chapter, we'll explore paralanguage, the hidden meanings in vocal tone, pitch, pace, and patterns. You'll discover how the same words can carry completely different messages depending on how they're delivered, and you'll learn to hear what people really mean beneath what they're saying. Chapter 3. Beyond Words, the Hidden Messages in Voice and Speech. Imagine listening to a symphony where the notes are words, but the true emotion comes from the tempo, volume, and intensity of the music. This is paralanguage, the how of communication that often matters more than the what. In this chapter, you'll learn to hear the symphony beneath the conversation, detecting truth, emotion, and hidden meaning in the way people speak. Paralanguage encompasses everything about speech except the actual words: tone, pitch, volume, pace, rhythm, and pauses. These elements carry enormous amounts of information, often revealing what someone truly feels when their words are trying to hide it. Have you ever noticed how you can tell your partner is upset just by their "I'm fine," even though the words themselves seem neutral? That's paralanguage at work. Let's start with vocal tone, perhaps the most revealing element of speech. Tone conveys emotion with remarkable precision. A warm, relaxed tone indicates comfort and openness. A tight, Constricted tone suggests stress or withheld emotion. A flat, monotone delivery can signal depression, boredom, or deliberate emotional suppression. The key is to match the tone to the message. When they align, the person is being congruent and likely truthful. When they conflict, something is being hidden. Pay attention to pitch changes as well. Our vocal pitch naturally rises when we're excited, anxious, or passionate about something. It drops when we're serious, sad, or trying to convey authority. But here's a powerful tell. When someone is lying or uncomfortable, their pitch often rises involuntarily due to tension in the vocal cords. It's subtle, but once you start listening for it, you'll hear it constantly. The pace of speech reveals enormous amounts of information. Fast, rushed speech can indicate nervousness, excitement, or an attempt to overwhelm you with information so you don't have time to think critically. Slow, measured speech suggests careful thought, uncertainty about what to say, or an attempt to appear more thoughtful than they feel. Watch for changes in pace during a conversation. These shifts signal emotional changes or increased cognitive load, like when someone is constructing a lie. Pauses and hesitations are gold mines of information. Natural pauses come at logical breaks, the end of thoughts or sentences. Unnatural pauses often indicate internal processing, deciding what to say, suppressing an emotion, or choosing between truth and fiction. Pay special attention to pauses before answering simple questions. If someone hesitates before answering, "Did you finish that project?" they're either lying or have complicated feelings about the truth. Volume is another revealing element. People raise their voice when they want to dominate, persuade forcefully, or express strong emotion. They lower their voice for intimacy, secrecy, or when discussing something uncomfortable. Sudden changes in volume often signal emotional activation, either positive or negative. Someone who's been speaking at a normal volume and suddenly drops to nearly a whisper is likely sharing something vulnerable or shameful. One particularly useful skill is detecting incongruence, when the paralanguage doesn't match the words. This mismatch is one of the most reliable indicators that someone isn't being fully authentic. For instance, someone might say, "I'm so excited about this opportunity," in a flat, lifeless tone. The words say one thing, but the delivery reveals the truth. Always trust the paralanguage over the words when they conflict. Speech patterns also reveal cognitive and emotional states. Repeated words or phrases can indicate stress. I just need a minute. Fillers like and increase when someone is uncertain or being deceptive. They need thinking time, but don't want to leave an obvious pause. Formal language replacing normal casual speech can signal discomfort or emotional distance. "I would appreciate it if you would," versus "can you?" Listen for emotional leakage. Those moments when genuine emotion seeps through someone's control facade. It might be a slight tremor in the voice, a catch in the throat, or a sudden rush of words. These leaks reveal true feelings that the person is trying to contain. As you develop your ability to read paralanguage, practice this exercise. Watch television or videos with your eyes closed. Listen only to the voices. You'll be amazed at how much emotional information you can gather without seeing the speakers. This trains your ear to pick up the subtle variations in speech that most people miss. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to hear the hidden messages beneath conversations. You understand how tone, pitch, pace, and patterns reveal truth and emotion. But to truly master reading people, you need to combine all these skills and understand the deeper patterns of human behavior. In the next chapter, we'll explore behavioral patterns and personality profiles, the consistent ways people approach the world. You'll learn to quickly identify someone's core drivers, fears, and values, allowing you to predict behavior and adapt your approach for maximum connection and influence. Chapter 4: Behavioral Patterns. Understanding the core of who people are. Picture yourself as an archaeologist, but instead of excavating ancient ruins, you're uncovering the layers of personality that make each person unique. Beneath the surface behaviors and situational responses lies a core pattern, a consistent way of processing information, making decisions, and relating to others. In this chapter, you'll learn to identify these fundamental patterns quickly and use this understanding to build deeper, more authentic connections. Understanding behavioral patterns is about recognizing that people aren't random. They're remarkably consistent in their core approaches to life, even when their surface behaviors seem to vary. Once you identify someone's pattern, you can predict how they'll respond to situations, what motivates them, and what threatens them. This isn't about putting people in boxes. It's about understanding their internal logic so you can communicate in ways that resonate with who they really are. One powerful framework for understanding people is recognizing primary motivational drivers. At the core, people are driven by one of several fundamental needs: achievement, accomplishing goals, proving competence, affiliation, connection, belonging, harmony, power, influence, control, impact, security, safety, predictability, stability, or autonomy, freedom, independence, self-direction. Listen to how people talk about their experiences. What do they emphasize? What makes them light up? This reveals their core driver. For instance, someone driven by achievement will naturally frame experiences in terms of success and failure. They'll talk about goals, milestones, and performance. Someone driven by affiliation will talk about relationships, team dynamics, and how people felt. Someone driven by power will discuss influence, decisions, and impact. Once you identify someone's primary driver, you can frame your communication to align with it. Another crucial dimension is how people process information and make decisions. Some people are highly analytical. They need data, logic, and systematic thinking. Others are intuitive. They trust their gut and prefer big-picture thinking over details. Some are structured and methodical, while others are flexible and spontaneous. Neither approach is better, but trying to convince an intuitive person with a spreadsheet or a logical person with a feeling will fail spectacularly. Watch how people tell stories. Analytical types include details, sequence, and cause-effect relationships. Intuitive types skip around, emphasize impressions and patterns, and make conceptual leaps. Structured types tell stories chronologically with clear beginnings, middles, and ends. Flexible types meander, backtrack, and follow tangents. Match your communication style to theirs for instant rapport. Pay attention to how people handle stress and conflict. This reveals character like nothing else. Some people become aggressive and confrontational. Others withdraw and shut down. Some seek connection and want to talk it through. Others need space to process alone. Understanding someone's stress pattern allows you to respond in ways that actually help rather than escalate tension. One valuable skill is recognizing defense mechanisms, the unconscious strategies people use to protect themselves from psychological threat. Some people use humor to deflect serious topics. Others intellectualize emotions, turning feelings into abstract analysis. Some project their feelings onto others. Some deny reality. Some rationalize their behavior with logical-sounding excuses. These mechanisms aren't character flaws. They're survival strategies. Recognizing them helps you understand what someone is protecting and respond with compassion rather than judgment. Look for consistency between what people say and what they do. This alignment, or lack of it, reveals integrity and self-awareness. Someone who constantly talks about health but never exercises is struggling with gap between their ideal self and actual behavior. This gap creates internal tension that affects all their interactions. The more aligned someone is between values and actions, the more grounded and authentic they tend to be. Another powerful observation is how people handle success and failure. Some internalize success, I'm talented, and externalize failure, the situation was impossible. Others do the opposite. These patterns reveal self-esteem, locus of control, and resilience. They also predict how someone will respond to feedback and challenges. Watch how people establish and maintain boundaries. Some people have rigid, inflexible boundaries. They're protective of their time, space, and energy. Others have porous boundaries. They overcommit, struggle to say no, and become enmeshed in others' problems. Healthy boundaries are flexible but firm. Observing someone's boundary patterns tells you how to approach them, what they'll tolerate, and where they'll push back. As you practice identifying behavioral patterns, remember that people are complex. They might show different patterns in different contexts, more analytical at work, more intuitive at home. The goal isn't to reduce people to simple categories, but to understand their core tendencies so you can adapt your approach. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to quickly identify someone's core drivers, decision-making style, and stress patterns. You're developing the ability to see the consistent patterns beneath variable surface behaviors. But understanding patterns is just the beginning. To truly master reading people, you need to build trust and create the conditions where people reveal themselves authentically. In the next chapter, we'll explore the art of building instant rapport, the techniques that make people feel comfortable, understood, and willing to open up to you. You'll learn to create connection so quickly and naturally that people will wonder what makes you so easy to talk to. Chapter 5. Building Instant Rapport, the Art of Connection. Imagine having a key that unlocks any door. Not a physical door, but the invisible barriers people construct around themselves. This key is rapport, and when you master it, you can create instant connection with almost anyone. In this chapter, you'll learn the precise techniques that make people feel immediately comfortable with you, trust you quickly, and open up in ways they rarely do with others. Rapport is that magical feeling of being in sync with someone like you're on the same wavelength. It's what makes some people immediately likable while others, despite having nothing obviously wrong with them, never quite connect. The great news is that rapport isn't mysterious or accidental. It's a set of learnable skills that you can deploy strategically. The foundation of rapport is matching and mirroring, subtly adopting elements of another person's behavior to create unconscious familiarity. This isn't mimicry, which is obvious and off-putting. It's gentle synchronization that happens naturally when people are genuinely connected, but you can do it intentionally to create that connection. Start with physical matching. If someone is sitting back in a relaxed posture, you relax too. If they lean forward intently, you lean in as well. If they speak with animated hand gestures, you increase your gesturing. If they're still and contained, you become more still. This creates a subtle resonance. They feel like you're similar to them, and similarity breeds trust and comfort. Match their energy level too. High energy, enthusiastic people find low energy people draining and boring. Calm, measured people find high-energy people exhausting and overwhelming. The fastest way to lose someone is to operate at a dramatically different energy level than they do. Sense their energy and adjust yours to harmonize. Vocal matching is equally powerful. Match their pace of speech. If they talk slowly and thoughtfully, slow down. If they speak quickly with excitement, pick up your pace. Match their volume. Loud people perceive quiet people as timid. Quiet people perceive loud people as aggressive. Match their tone and formality level. Someone using casual slang will feel judged if you respond in formal, proper language, and vice versa. One of the most powerful rapport techniques is matching language patterns and sensory preferences. People process the world through different primary senses. Visual people use phrases like, "I see what you mean, that looks good, picture this." Auditory people say, "That sounds right, I hear you, that rings true." Kinesthetic people use, "I feel, that resonates, get a grip on this." Match their sensory language, and you'll seem to speak their language literally. But rapport isn't just about matching. It's also about genuine attention. In our distracted age, the simple act of giving someone your complete, undivided attention is radically powerful. Put away your phone. Stop planning what you'll say next. Actually listen to understand, not just to respond. Most people are so starved for genuine attention that when you provide it, they feel an instant connection. Practice active listening with curiosity rather than judgment. When someone shares something, ask yourself, why would a reasonable person think /feel/do this? This question activates empathy and prevents you from dismissing perspectives different from your own. People can sense when you're judging them versus when you're genuinely trying to understand. Use strategic self-disclosure to build rapport through reciprocity. When you share something personal, appropriately timed, and not too heavy, it creates an implicit invitation for the other person to share something similar. This creates intimacy rapidly. But be careful. Share just slightly more than they have, never dramatically more. If they mention they had a stressful day, you might share a recent stress you experienced. Don't launch into your life trauma. Find genuine common ground. People bond over shared experiences, interests, values, and challenges. The key word is genuine. Forced commonality feels fake. When you discover real overlap, acknowledge it with enthusiasm. No way. I love that too. Or I went through something similar. Common ground creates an us feeling instead of a you and me separation. Remember names and use them naturally in conversation. Dale Carnegie said it best. A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Using someone's name creates intimacy and shows you value them enough to remember. But don't overuse it. That becomes manipulative. Be aware of conversational turn-taking. Rapport requires balance. If you dominate the conversation, the other person feels unheard. If you never share, they feel like they're being interrogated. Aim for roughly balanced exchanges where you're both contributing, asking, and answering. As you practice building rapport, you'll notice it becomes increasingly natural. You'll start unconsciously matching people you want to connect with, and you'll quickly sense when rapport exists versus when something is off. This sensitivity is your social radar becoming more refined. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to build rapport quickly with almost anyone. You understand the importance of matching, genuine attention, and strategic self-disclosure. But rapport alone isn't enough. To truly master reading people, you need to understand what they're not saying, the hidden messages they're trying to convey indirectly. In the next chapter, we'll explore the subtle art of reading between the lines, detecting hidden agendas, unspoken needs, and disguised emotions. You'll learn to hear what people mean rather than just what they say. Chapter 6, Reading Between the Lines, Detecting Hidden Meaning. Picture yourself as a translator, but instead of converting words from one language to another, you're translating between what people say and what they actually mean. In this chapter, you'll develop the ability to detect the subtext beneath conversations, the hidden agendas, unspoken needs, and disguised emotions that drive behavior far more than the surface-level communication. The truth is, people rarely say exactly what they mean. Sometimes this is strategic. They're being political, testing you, or trying to manipulate. Sometimes it's unconscious. They don't fully understand their own motivations, or they've learned that direct communication isn't safe. Your job as a reader of people is to develop dual awareness, simultaneously hearing the literal words and the underlying message. One of the most important skills is recognizing indirect communication. Many people, especially those from high-context cultures or conflict-avoidant backgrounds, communicate important messages indirectly. We should probably think about this more. Often means I don't want to do this. That's an interesting idea. Can mean I think that's terrible, but I'm being polite. I'm fine frequently means anything but fine. The key to decoding indirect communication is understanding the gap between the expected response and the actual response. If someone asks, "Do you like this?" and you say it's interesting, you've dodged the question. The dodge itself is the answer. When someone provides a non-answer, they're usually protecting themselves or you from an uncomfortable truth. Pay attention to qualifying language, the words people use to soften or hedge their statements. I'm not sure, but maybe we could. Kind of, sort of. These qualifiers indicate uncertainty, discomfort, or testing how you'll respond before fully committing. The more someone qualifies a statement, the less confident they actually are about it. Watch for redirection. When someone responds to a question by asking a question, changing the subject, or focusing on a tangential detail. This is often a sign they don't want to answer directly. For example, if you ask, "Did you finish the report?" and they respond with, "You know how crazy this week has been," they're avoiding a direct admission that they didn't finish it. One particularly revealing pattern is when people protest too much. When someone repeatedly insists something is true without being challenged, They're often trying to convince themselves as much as you. "I'm totally over my ex," said 3 times unprompted, usually means they're not over their ex at all. The truth doesn't need constant reinforcement. Learn to recognize, but statements, they're linguistic tells of true priorities. Everything before, but is often social lubrication. Everything after, but is what they really mean. "I like you, but" means they don't like you enough. "That's a good idea, but" means they think it's a bad idea. "I'd love to help, but" means they don't want to help. The "but" negates what came before it. Pay attention to what people don't say. Omissions are often more revealing than inclusions. If someone describes their weekend and doesn't mention their partner when they normally would, something has shifted in that relationship. If someone lists reasons for a decision but skips an obvious one, that omitted reason might be the real one they're hiding. Another powerful tell is emotional intensity that doesn't match the situation. When someone gets disproportionately upset about a minor issue, the issue isn't really about what it appears to be about. It's triggering something deeper, a pattern, a fear, an old wound. The person who explodes when you're 5 minutes late isn't really angry about those 5 minutes. They're angry about feeling disrespected or unimportant, possibly echoing historical patterns. Watch for pattern breaks. When someone who's normally punctual starts being late, who's normally attentive becomes distracted, who's normally engaged becomes withdrawn, something has changed. These shifts signal internal changes: stress, conflict, depression, shifting priorities, or hidden situations they can't or won't discuss directly. Learn to identify hidden questions within statements. "I notice you've been spending a lot of time with Sarah lately" isn't an observation. It's a question or accusation disguised as a statement. They're really asking, "Are you interested in Sarah?" Or saying, "I'm uncomfortable with how much time you spend with Sarah." Statements of observation about others' behavior usually have hidden agenda behind them. Pay attention to subject changes and avoidance patterns. When certain topics consistently get redirected, that topic is loaded with significance. It might be too painful, too conflictual, too shameful, or too important. The avoidance itself tells you this is a pressure point. One sophisticated skill is detecting manipulation through linguistic patterns. Manipulative people use specific techniques: guilt tripping, "After all I've done for you," gaslighting, "You're too sensitive," passive aggression, "Fine, whatever you want," or creating urgency, "You need to decide right now." Recognizing these patterns protects you from being manipulated and helps you understand the manipulator's underlying insecurities. As you develop your ability to read between the lines, remember this crucial principle: multiple interpretations are possible. The same behavior or statement might mean different things in different contexts or from different people. Your job is to generate hypotheses and test them against other evidence, not jump to conclusions. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to detect the hidden messages beneath surface communication. You understand how to read indirect communication, spot avoidance, and recognize emotional intensity mismatches. But understanding hidden meaning is only useful if you know how to respond effectively. In the next chapter, we'll explore strategic communication, how to respond in ways that build trust, extract truth, and influence outcomes without manipulation. You'll learn to communicate with precision, adapting your approach based on what you're reading from others. Chapter 7: Strategic Communication, Responding with Precision. Imagine you're a master chess player, but instead of moving pieces on a board, you're navigating conversations with surgical precision. Every word, pause, and gesture is a strategic choice designed to create specific outcomes, not through manipulation, but through genuine understanding and ethical influence. In this chapter, you'll learn to translate your ability to read people into powerful, adaptive communication that builds trust and achieves results. Strategic communication starts with intentionality. Most people communicate reactively. They blurt out whatever comes to mind in response to what they hear. Skilled communicators create a brief gap between perception and response, using that gap to consider: what is this person really asking for? What do they need to hear? What will move this conversation toward a productive outcome? One foundational technique is meeting people where they're emotionally before trying to move them anywhere else. If someone is angry, try to immediately logic them into calmness fails spectacularly. Instead, acknowledge the emotion first. I can see this really frustrates you. This validation creates safety, and only from safety can people shift their emotional state. Once they feel heard, then you can introduce other perspectives. Learn to use calibrated questions, open-ended questions that guide thinking without triggering defensiveness. Instead of, "Why didn't you finish this?" Accusatory. Ask, "What got in the way of finishing this?" Instead of, "Don't you think that a bad idea?" Leading. Ask, "What are you hoping will happen?" These questions invite reflection and collaboration rather than triggering defensiveness. Understand the power of pacing and leading. In rapport building, you match someone's state, pacing. Once rapport is established, you can gradually shift your own state, and they'll often follow you, leading. If someone is agitated and speaking quickly, you match their pace initially, then gradually slow down your speech. As they follow your lead, their agitation often decreases. This works with energy levels, emotional intensity, and communication styles. Use strategic silence as one of your most powerful tools. When you ask a question, resist the urge to fill silence with more talking. Silence creates pressure, not hostile pressure, but space that people feel compelled to fill. Often, the most revealing information comes after a pause. The person who can be comfortable with silence has enormous power in conversations because others will reveal more to ease their own discomfort. Learn the art of the minimal encourager, those small verbal and nonverbal signals that invite people to continue and go deeper. Hum, tell me more, and then. These their prompts keep people talking and revealing without you having to say much at all. They give you time to observe and think while keeping the other person engaged and expressive. Practice selective vulnerability, sharing just enough about yourself to create connection and reciprocity without oversharing or making the conversation about you. When someone shares a challenge, sharing a similar challenge you've faced and ideally overcome creates connection. But keep your share brief and return focus to them. The formula: acknowledge, brief personal connection, return attention to them. Understand reframing, the ability to shift how someone perceives a situation by changing the context or emphasis. If someone says, "I'm such a perfectionist, it's terrible," you might reframe, "It sounds like you have really high standards for your work." That's admirable, though I wonder if sometimes those standards become more painful than helpful. You're not arguing with them. You're offering an alternative perspective that might be more useful. Learn to give feedback in ways that people can actually receive it. The formula: specific behavior, impact of that behavior, what you'd like instead. When you interrupt me in meetings, I feel like my ideas don't matter, and I'd really appreciate if you'd let me finish before jumping in. This is concrete, focuses on behavior rather than character, and provides a clear alternative. Compare this to "You're so rude" in meetings, which is vague, attacks character, and provides no guidance. Understand that different people need different communication approaches. Remember those behavioral patterns and motivational drivers from Chapter 4? Use them. When talking to achievement-driven people, frame things in terms of goals and success. For affiliation-driven people, emphasize relationships and harmony. For analytical people, provide data and logic. For intuitive people, paint the vision and big picture. Practice tactical empathy, verbalizing the emotions and perspective of the other person, even when you don't agree with them. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by these demands and worried that nothing you do will be enough. This isn't agreement, it's acknowledgement. When people feel deeply understood, their defenses drop and they become open to influence. Learn to de-escalate conflict by refusing to match aggression with aggression. When someone comes at you with intensity, responding with equal intensity creates a feedback loop that spirals out of control. Instead, maintain calm. Acknowledge their emotion without becoming defensive. Often, your calm creates a ceiling on the conflict. It can't rise higher than the calmest person in the room allows. Use I statements instead of use statements to express concerns without triggering defensiveness. "I feel concerned when deadlines are missed" is easier to hear than "you always miss deadlines." The first owns your experience. The second attacks their character. As you develop strategic communication skills, the ethical dimension becomes crucial. These techniques are powerful, and power requires responsibility. Always ask yourself, am I using this skill to understand and serve, or to manipulate and control? The former builds lasting trust and genuine relationships. The latter might work short-term, but destroys trust and ultimately backfires. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to respond to social situations with precision and strategy. You understand how to meet people where they are, use questions and silence effectively, and adapt your approach based on who you're dealing with. But even the most strategic communication sometimes faces a formidable obstacle: deception. In the next chapter, we'll explore the complex world of detecting lies and deception. You'll learn the subtle signs that someone isn't being truthful, how to verify your suspicions, and when to call out deception versus letting it pass. Chapter 8: Detecting Deception, Navigating Truth and Lies. Picture yourself as a human lie detector, able to spot deception with remarkable accuracy. But unlike a polygraph machine measuring physiological responses, you're integrating dozens of subtle signals, verbal, nonverbal, and contextual, to determine when someone is being less than truthful. In this chapter, you'll learn the art and science of detecting deception without becoming paranoid or accusatory. First, let's establish something crucial: everyone lies. Research suggests people lie, on average, 1 to 2 times per day. Most lies are small, social lies that lubricate interactions. You look great. I'd love to, but I'm busy. I was just about to call you. Trying to catch every lie is exhausting, unnecessary, and destructive to relationships. The goal isn't to become the lie police. It's to detect deception when it actually matters, when trust, safety, or important decisions are at stake. Detecting deception starts with understanding that lying creates cognitive load. When someone lies, their brain is doing multiple things simultaneously: suppressing the truth, constructing the false narrative, monitoring your reaction for suspicion, and remembering the lie for consistency later. This cognitive load produces detectable signs, though no single sign proves deception. The most reliable indicator is the cluster principle: multiple deception indicators appearing together. A single nervous gesture means little, but when you see several signs simultaneously, your suspicion should increase. Look for at least 3 to 4 indicators in the same moment or conversation. Let's start with verbal indicators. Liars tend to provide too many details or too few. Too many details is an attempt to make the story convincing. They're overcompensating. Too few details suggest they're afraid of being caught in inconsistency. Either extreme is suspicious compared to the natural level of detail someone normally provides. Pay attention to linguistic distance. When people use language that distances themselves from their statement. Instead of, "I didn't take the money," a liar might say, "The money wasn't taken by me," or "that money remained where it was." This grammatical distance reflects their psychological desire to separate themselves from the lie. Watch for response timing. When answering simple, non-threatening questions, people respond quickly and naturally. When lying, there's often a slight delay while they construct the false response. But be careful. People also pause when questions are complex or when they're carefully choosing words for sensitive truths. Context matters. Notice pronoun usage changes. Someone who's been using I statements might suddenly switch to we or you when discussing a particular part of their story. This often indicates they're sharing responsibility or distancing themselves from personal involvement. "We all thought it was a good idea" might mean "I knew it wasn't, but I'm hiding behind the group." Liars often avoid saying "I" altogether when denying something. "Never touched that" versus "I never touched that." The absence of the personal pronoun is a subtle form of distancing from the statement, making it psychologically easier to say. Watch for emotional timing mismatches. Genuine emotion and expression occur simultaneously. When someone hears bad news, their facial expression of shock or sadness appears instantly. But when someone is faking emotion, there's often a slight delay, They have to consciously produce the expression rather than it emerging naturally. The delay is subtle, often less than a second, but it's detectable once you're watching for it. Microexpressions, which we discussed in Chapter 2, are particularly valuable for detecting deception. The flash of a genuine emotion, perhaps fear or guilt, before the mask drops into place reveals internal truth. Train yourself to spot these brief flickers, especially around the eyes and mouth. Pay attention to self-soothing behaviors, which increase under stress. When lying, people experience anxiety, and they unconsciously attempt to comfort themselves through touching their face, neck, or arms, adjusting their clothing, or engaging in repetitive movements like tapping or fidgeting. These behaviors spike when discussing the deceptive content specifically. Watch for hand-face interactions, particularly when people cover or touch their mouth while speaking. This is often an unconscious gesture related to blocking the lie from coming out. Nose touching, ear pulling, and neck scratching also increase during deception, as stress causes slight itching sensations and increased body awareness. Observe changes in eye contact patterns. The common belief that liars can't maintain eye contact is actually wrong. Many trained liars deliberately maintain eye contact to appear truthful. More reliable is watching for changes from someone's baseline. If they normally make comfortable eye contact and suddenly won't, that's significant. If they normally look away when thinking and suddenly hold intense eye contact, that's also significant. Body language often becomes more rigid during deception. People limit their natural gesturing and movement, perhaps unconsciously trying to take up less space or reduce the risk of giving themselves away through movement. This contrasts with their normal, relaxed animation level. Watch for defensive positioning, creating physical barriers between themselves and you, crossing arms, holding objects in front of their body, moving backwards, or orienting their body away from you, even while their face remains toward you. These movements indicate unconscious desire to protect themselves or escape. One powerful technique is the cognitive load test. Ask unexpected questions that require the person to access their memory in unusual ways. Tell me what happened backwards, starting from the end. Truth tellers can usually do this because they're accessing real memories. Liars struggle because they've constructed a linear story, and accessing it non-linearly requires reconstructing the lie in real time. Another valuable method is asking the same question in different ways at different times. Liars have to remember their lie and keep it consistent, which is cognitively demanding. The more you revisit topics from different angles, the harder it becomes to maintain the false narrative without contradictions emerging. Pay attention to defensiveness and aggression when simple questions are asked. Did you mail that letter? Shouldn't trigger, why are you interrogating me? Or, I can't believe you don't trust me. This overreaction suggests guilt and an attempt to deflect through emotional manipulation. Watch for changes in the story over time. Truth tellers generally maintain consistency because they're recounting actual events. Liars add details, change details, or contradict themselves because they're working from constructed memory rather than real memory. However, and this is critical, all these indicators can have innocent explanations. Nervousness, stress, neurodivergence, cultural differences, and personality variations can produce similar behaviors. Never accuse someone of lying based solely on behavioral cues. Use these indicators to raise your suspicion and warrant further gentle investigation, not as proof of deception. When you suspect deception, here's the strategic approach. Continue gathering information through open-ended questions. Create opportunities for the person to either commit more deeply to the lie, making future contradictions more obvious, or to tell the truth, and watch for additional confirming or disconfirming signals. Often, giving someone space and patience allows the truth to emerge naturally. By the end of this chapter, you should understand the complex indicators of deception and how to detect lies with reasonable accuracy. But remember, trust is the foundation of relationships, and constant suspicion destroys connection. Use these skills judiciously, primarily in situations where truth matters significantly. In the next chapter, we'll will shift from detecting deception to understanding genuine emotional depth. You'll learn to recognize and respond to the complex emotional landscapes that people navigate, allowing you to provide support, build intimacy, and connect at the deepest levels. Chapter 9: Emotional Intelligence: Reading and Responding to Feelings. Imagine you're an emotional cartographer, mapping the invisible but powerful landscape of human feelings. Some people navigate life emotionally blind, missing the rich terrain all around them. But you're developing the ability to perceive, understand, and navigate this emotional world with sophistication. In this chapter, you'll master emotional intelligence, the skill that transforms you from someone who merely reads people to someone who truly understands them. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to recognize emotions in yourself and others, understand what those emotions are communicating, and respond in ways that honor and work with emotions rather than against them. It's arguably the most important social skill you can develop because emotions drive human behavior far more than logic or reason. Let's start with emotion recognition. While the 7 universal emotions, happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, contempt, are expressed similarly across all cultures, the triggers for these emotions and the rules about displaying them vary enormously. Your job is to recognize the emotion beneath whatever cultural or personal display rules are masking it. Learn to distinguish between primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotions are the immediate, authentic reactions: fear, hurt, sadness. Secondary emotions are what we convert primary emotions into because they feel safer or more acceptable. Fear becomes anger because anger feels more powerful than vulnerability. Hurt becomes withdrawal because distance protects from further hurt. Sadness becomes irritation because irritation is more acceptable than sadness in some contexts. When you observe someone's emotional expression, always ask, what's the deeper emotion beneath this one? That person who seems constantly angry might be primarily afraid. That person who seems aloof might be deeply sad. Reading the surface emotion is level 1. Reading the underlying authentic emotion is mastery. Pay attention to emotional congruence. When someone's facial expression, body language, words, and tone all align with the same emotion, they're being emotionally authentic. When these channels send conflicting messages, something is being suppressed, controlled, or faked. Someone saying, "I'm fine," with a tight smile, slumped shoulders, and a flat voice is clearly not fine. Learn to recognize emotional regulation strategies. Everyone regulates emotions, but how they do it reveals their emotional health and coping skills. Healthy regulation includes acknowledging the emotion, understanding its source, expressing it appropriately, and then letting it pass. Unhealthy regulation includes suppression, pretending the emotion doesn't exist, explosion, letting it out destructively, projection, making it someone else's fault, or rumination, dwelling on it obsessively. Watch for emotional leakage. Those moments when someone's carefully controlled emotional facade cracks slightly. It might be a flash of pain across their face, a tremor in their voice, a sudden tear quickly blinked away, or an inappropriate laugh when discussing something serious. These leaks reveal the authentic emotion being suppressed. Understand emotional triggers and patterns. Everyone has emotional hot buttons, topics, situations, or behaviors that provoke disproportionate emotional reactions. When you observe someone reacting strongly to something seemingly minor, you've discovered a trigger. That trigger connects to something deeper, an old wound, a core fear, or a fundamental value. For example, someone who becomes intensely angry when feeling excluded likely has deep fears about belonging. Someone who gets defensive when their competence is questioned probably ties their self-worth to being capable. Understanding these trigger patterns gives you insight into someone's core vulnerabilities and values. Learn to differentiate between expressed and felt emotion. Some people feel emotions intensely, but express them minimally, often true for highly controlled or introverted people. Others express emotions dramatically, but may not actually feel them as intensely as they appear, often true for histrionic or highly attention-seeking people. The key is watching for the person's baseline emotional expressiveness and then noting deviations. Pay attention to emotional contagion, the phenomenon where emotions spread between people like a virus. Have you ever been in a great mood until you encountered someone who was miserable and suddenly you fell down too? That's emotional contagion. Skilled readers of people recognize when they're catching someone else's emotion versus experiencing their own emotion, and they can choose whether to resonate with it or maintain their own emotional state. Develop the ability to name emotions with precision. Most people have a limited emotional vocabulary: happy, sad, angry, scared. But emotions are far more nuanced. Someone might be not just sad, but melancholic, dejected, mournful, or hopeless, each a distinct emotional state requiring different responses. The more precisely you can identify emotional states, the more effectively you can respond. Learn to respond to emotions effectively. This doesn't mean making emotions go away. That's usually impossible and often unhelpful. Instead, it means acknowledging the emotion, validating that it makes sense given their perspective, and helping the person process it productively. The formula for emotional validation is, it makes sense that you feel emotion because their reason. For example, it makes sense that you feel frustrated because you've been working so hard and not seeing the results you expected. This doesn't mean you agree with their interpretation of events, just that their emotional response is understandable given how they see things. Understand that different emotions require different responses. Fear needs safety and reassurance. Anger needs acknowledgement and boundaries. Sadness needs compassion and space. Joy needs celebration and sharing. Guilt needs either amends or forgiveness. Responding to the wrong emotion or with the wrong approach fails to meet the person's actual need. Practice emotional attunement, the ability to feel with someone without losing yourself in their experience. This is different from emotional contagion. Attunement means you sense their emotional state accurately and respond with empathy while maintaining your own emotional stability. You're a compassionate witness, not a drowning rescuer. Learn to manage your own emotional reactions to others' emotions. When someone is angry, it's natural to become defensive. When someone is sad, you might feel compelled to fix it. When someone is anxious, you might feel anxious too. Skilled emotional intelligence means recognizing your reactive patterns and choosing responses rather than automatic reactions. One advanced skill is recognizing emotional needs people aren't consciously aware of. Sometimes people think they want advice when they actually need validation. Sometimes they think they want to be left alone when they actually need connection. Sometimes they think they're angry when they're actually hurt. Seeing beneath their conscious request to their deeper need is a profound form of emotional intelligence. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to recognize, understand, and respond effectively to the full range of human emotions. You're developing the emotional sophistication that creates deep connection and genuine support. But emotional intelligence, powerful as it is just one dimension of reading people. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to integrate all these skills: nonverbal communication, vocal patterns, behavioral understanding, strategic communication, deception detection, and emotional intelligence into a comprehensive system for reading people in real-world contexts. Chapter 10: Integration and Application, Mastering Social Intelligence in Real Life. Picture yourself conducting an orchestra where each instrument represents one of the skills you've learned: body language, vocal tone, emotional patterns, behavioral tendencies, and strategic communication. Alone, each instrument produces valuable information. Together, they create a symphony of understanding. In this chapter, you'll learn to integrate all these skills into a fluid, natural ability to read people and respond with sophistication in any situation. The first key to integration is developing what we call social presence, the ability to be fully present in interactions while simultaneously observing and analyzing. This sounds contradictory, but with practice, it becomes natural. Part of your attention engages authentically in the conversation. Another part monitors the multiple channels of communication you've learned to read. Think of it like driving a car. When you're learning, you consciously think about every action. Check mirrors, use turn signal, adjust speed. Eventually, these behaviors become automatic, freeing your conscious mind to focus on navigation and traffic conditions. Similarly, reading people becomes automatic, allowing your conscious mind to focus on connection and strategy. Let's apply your integrated skills to common real-world scenarios in job interviews. As the interviewer asks questions, you're simultaneously reading their body language for genuine interest versus going through the motions, listening to their vocal patterns to understand which topics they're passionate about, observing which questions cause them to lean in and which cause them to lean back. This real-time reading allows you to emphasize the aspects of your background that genuinely interest them and address concerns they haven't explicitly voiced. In negotiations, you watch for microexpressions of anxiety or excitement when certain terms are mentioned, revealing their actual priorities beneath their stated position. You listen for hesitation or confidence in their voice when discussing price or conditions. You observe their body language shift when you approach their true bottom line. This intelligence allows you to find a solution that genuinely works for both parties rather than getting stuck in position-based arguments. In leadership and management, you recognize when an employee says everything's fine, but their slumped shoulders, flat effect, and avoidance of eye contact reveal they're struggling. You notice when team energy drops during meetings, signaling boredom or disagreement, even though no one speaks up. You detect when someone's sudden change in behavior signals personal crisis, job dissatisfaction, or conflict with colleagues. This awareness allows you to address issues early, provide support proactively, and build team cohesion. In intimate relationships, you recognize when your partner's withdrawn behavior isn't about you, but about stress they're processing internally. You detect the microexpression of hurt when you accidentally say something cutting, even though they brush it off verbally. You sense when they need connection versus when they need space, even when they can't articulate it themselves. This sensitivity creates profound intimacy and prevents small issues from becoming major conflicts. In conflict resolution, you recognize when someone's aggression is actually fear-based, allowing you to address the underlying fear rather than matching their aggression. You detect when someone is ready to find resolution versus when they need more time to feel heard. You sense which issues are the real core problems versus which are proxies for deeper concerns. This understanding transforms your ability to facilitate genuine resolution. One crucial principle in applying these skills: rapid hypothesis testing. Based on initial signals, you form a hypothesis about what's happening. I think they're nervous, or I suspect they're hiding something. Then you test that hypothesis through targeted observation, strategic questions, or subtle behavioral changes. If confirming evidence appears, your confidence in the hypothesis increases. If disconfirming evidence appears, you update your hypothesis. This prevents you from locking into incorrect interpretations. Practice the rule of three. Don't trust any single indicator. Look for at least 3 signals pointing in the same direction before forming confident conclusions. This prevents overinterpretation and keeps you from seeing patterns that aren't there. Develop contextual intelligence. The same behavior means different things in different contexts. Crossed arms might indicate defensiveness in a confrontation, but simple comfort while listening to a presentation. Vocal tension might indicate lying in a low-stakes conversation, but appropriate nervousness in a high-stakes job interview. Always calibrate your interpretations to context. Learn to operate at different speeds. Sometimes you need rapid real-time assessment, a job interview, a first date, a sales interaction. You're making snap judgments based on limited information. Other times you have extended interaction, a developing friendship, a workplace relationship, a long-term project. Here you can observe patterns over time, test hypotheses, and develop deeper understanding. Use the appropriate reading speed for the situation. Understand your own biases and blind spots. You'll naturally read some types of people more accurately than others. You might be skilled at reading emotional states, but weak at detecting deception. You might excel at reading your own gender, culture, or age group, but struggle with others. Awareness of your weaknesses allows you to compensate, perhaps by gathering more information, consulting others, or simply maintaining appropriate uncertainty. Develop ethical guidelines for using these skills. With great power comes great responsibility. Use your ability to read people to understand, serve, and connect, not to manipulate, exploit, or control. When you detect vulnerability, respond with compassion, not predation. When you discover information someone didn't intentionally share, respect their privacy. Your goal is mutually beneficial interaction, not one-sided advantage. Practice restraint in sharing what you observe. Just because you can see someone's insecurity, anxiety, or hidden agenda doesn't mean you should call it out. Sometimes the kindest thing is to pretend you don't notice, allowing people to maintain their protective facades. Strategic ignorance is often more relationship-preserving than brutal honesty. Create feedback loops. After interactions, reflect. What did I read accurately? What did I misread? What signals did I miss? What could I have responded to more effectively? This conscious reflection accelerates your development far more than simply accumulating experience without analysis. Finally, remember that reading people is ultimately in service of connection. All these skills, the behavioral analysis, the deception detection, the emotional intelligence, are tools for understanding. And understanding is the foundation of genuine human connection. The goal isn't to dissect people like specimens under a microscope, but to truly see them, understand them, and relate to them authentically. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to integrate multiple reading skills simultaneously, apply them to real-world situations, and use them ethically and effectively. You're developing comprehensive social intelligence that transforms your relationships and interactions. But like any skill, social intelligence requires ongoing practice and refinement. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to continue developing your social intelligence throughout your life, avoid common pitfalls, and maintain the ethical foundation that keeps these powerful skills in service of genuine connection rather than manipulation. Chapter 11. Lifelong Development. Mastering the Art of Reading People. Imagine yourself as a master artist who never stops refining their craft. Even after years of practice, they continue studying, experimenting, and discovering new depths in their art. This is the mindset required for true mastery of social intelligence, a commitment to lifelong learning, continuous refinement, and ongoing self-awareness. In this chapter, you'll develop the practices and perspectives that will keep your skills sharp and your understanding deep for years to come. The journey of reading people doesn't end with the final page of this guide. In fact, it's just beginning. True mastery comes from years of conscious practice, countless interactions, and ongoing curiosity about human nature. The most skilled readers of people are those who remain perpetual students, always finding new layers of complexity and nuance in human behavior. Develop a regular practice of observation. Dedicate time to people watching in public spaces, cafes, parks, airports, without intervention. Observe interactions, hypothesize about relationships and emotional states. Watch how people navigate social spaces. This pure observation, without the pressure of participation, allows you to notice patterns you might miss when engaged in the interaction yourself. Create deliberate practice exercises. Watch videos of conversations with the sound off, focusing purely on nonverbal communication. Watch the same videos with sound but without picture, focusing purely on paralanguage. Watch complete videos and try to identify the emotional subtext and relationship dynamics. These isolated practice sessions develop specific components of your reading skills. Seek out diverse social environments. The more variety in your social exposure, the more sophisticated your reading becomes. If you typically interact with people similar to yourself, intentionally engage with different ages, cultures, professions, and personality types. Each new context teaches you that behaviors you thought were universal might be culturally specific or vice versa. Build a mental library of patterns. Over time, you'll encounter the same patterns repeatedly. The person who smiles while insulting you, the one who agrees verbally but resists behaviorally, the conflict avoider, the attention seeker, the manipulator, the genuinely open soul. Recognizing patterns allows faster, more accurate reading because you're matching new experiences against known templates. However, balance pattern recognition with openness to uniqueness. While patterns exist, every human is ultimately unique. The danger of expertise is becoming so confident in your reading that you stop actually seeing the individual in front of you and just see your category for them. Maintain beginner's mind, approaching each person with curiosity and openness despite your expertise. Develop cultural intelligence, specifically. If you interact across cultures, invest time understanding how different cultures approach eye contact, personal space, emotional expression, directness versus indirectness, and other communication norms. What reads as dishonest in one culture might be polite in another. What seems aggressive in one context might be normal enthusiasm in another. Learn from your mistakes with intentional analysis. When you misread someone, and you will, repeatedly, don't just move on. Reflect deeply. What signals did I miss or misinterpret? What assumptions did I bring that color my reading? What could I have done differently? Your failures are your greatest teachers if you learn from them. Seek feedback from trusted others. Ask people who know you well. How do you think I do at reading people? Are there blind spots you notice? Times when I completely misread situations. This external perspective reveals biases and gaps you can't see from inside your own perception. Study related fields. Psychology, anthropology, neuroscience, linguistics. These disciplines all offer insights into human behavior and communication. Reading research and theory deepens your understanding of why people behave as they do, which enhances your ability to read them accurately. Practice reading yourself with the same rigor you read others. Regular self-reflection keeps you honest about your own patterns, biases, and blind spots. Journal about your own behavior, emotional reactions, and social choices. The better you understand yourself, the better you understand others, because we're all fundamentally similar in being human. Develop a regular meditation or mindfulness practice. These practices enhance the present moment awareness necessary for reading people accurately. They also help you manage your own emotional reactions, which is crucial for maintaining the objective observation required for skilled reading. Be aware of the expert blind spot, the tendency for skilled people to see complexity where there is none or to overanalyze simple situations. Sometimes people are just having a bad day, not experiencing deep existential crisis. Sometimes they're just saying what they mean, not hiding complex subtext. Don't let your skills turn every interaction into a puzzle to solve. Maintain healthy skepticism about your own readings. Even experts are wrong regularly. Hold your interpretations lightly. Be willing to say, I'm not sure, or I might be misreading this. This humility keeps you accurate and prevents you from damaging relationships with overconfident, incorrect readings. Remember the ethical dimension constantly. As your skills grow, so does your power to influence, manipulate, or harm. Regularly examine your motivations. Am I using these skills to understand and serve, or to control and exploit? The most masterful readers of people are also the most ethical, because they understand that genuine connection requires integrity. Consider that sometimes the most skilled thing is to not read people. In casual, low-stakes interactions, constant analysis can make you seem distant or calculating. Sometimes presence and authentic engagement matter more than accurate reading. Learn when to turn your skills on and when to just be human together. Create a community of practice, if possible. Finding others interested in social intelligence allows you to discuss observations, share insights, challenge each other's interpretations, and accelerate learning. These relationships also provide crucial reality checks on your readings. Finally, never forget that reading people is ultimately in service of love, using that word in its broadest sense. The purpose of understanding others is to connect with them more deeply, serve them more effectively, and build relationships that enrich everyone involved. If your skills aren't making your relationships better and more fulfilling, you're missing the point. By the end of this chapter, you should have a clear path for continuing to develop your social intelligence throughout your life. You understand the importance of ongoing practice, diverse exposure, humble self-correction, and ethical application. But there's one final dimension to explore: how these skills position you to navigate the increasingly complex social landscape of the future. In our final chapter, we'll look ahead to how social intelligence will evolve in an age of digital communication, artificial intelligence, and rapidly changing social norms. You'll discover how the timeless principles you've learned will adapt to new contexts and why human connection skills will become even more valuable in the years ahead. Chapter 12. Conclusion: the future of human connection. As we stand at the threshold of an increasingly digital future, imagine yourself as a bridge between two worlds: the ancient art of reading people that humans have practiced for millennia, and the emerging landscape of virtual communication, AI interactions, and evolving social norms. In this final chapter, we'll explore how the skills you've developed will serve you in the changing world ahead, and why human social intelligence has never been more crucial. Let's begin by revisiting the core skills we've explored throughout this journey. 1. Self-awareness as the foundation for reading others accurately. 2. Decoding nonverbal communication and body language. 3. Understanding vocal patterns and paralanguage. 4. Recognizing behavioral patterns and personality profiles. 5. Building instant rapport and genuine connection. 6. Reading between the lines to detect hidden meaning. 7. Communicating strategically and adapting your approach. 8. Detecting deception while maintaining trust. 9. Developing emotional intelligence and empathy. 10. Integrating all skills into fluid, natural social intelligence. 11. Committing to lifelong learning and ethical practice. These skills form a comprehensive system for understanding and connecting with others. But remember, social intelligence is not just a set of techniques, it's a way of being in the world. It's approaching every interaction with curiosity, compassion, and genuine interest in understanding the unique human before you. As you move forward, focus on integrating these skills into your daily life naturally. Start each day by checking your own emotional and mental state, ensuring you're aware of the lens through which you'll perceive others. In every interaction, practice genuine presence, being fully there with the person rather than lost in your own thoughts or agenda. Notice one or two specific things about how they're communicating nonverbally or vocally, letting your analysis enhance rather than replace authentic engagement. When faced with important decisions involving people, hiring, partnering, entering relationships, navigating conflicts, slow down and consciously apply your reading skills. What are the multiple channels of communication telling you? What patterns are emerging? What's being said versus what's meant? This conscious application in high-stakes moments will serve you immensely. Looking to the future, the landscape of human interaction is evolving rapidly. We communicate increasingly through screens, encountering others through video calls, text messages, and social media rather than in person. This digital shift creates both challenges and opportunities for social intelligence. The challenge is obvious. Many of the nonverbal cues you've learned to read are diminished or absent in digital communication. You can't observe full body language on a video call. You can't detect microexpressions in text messages. You can't sense vocal tone in emails. This impoverishment of social signals makes miscommunication more likely and connection more challenging. However, skilled readers of people can adapt. Learn to read the available cues more carefully. The timing of responses, word choice, punctuation, emoji usage in text, the visible upper body, facial expressions, and background choices in video calls. Develop heightened sensitivity to the signals that remain available, since they carry even more weight when other channels are absent. More importantly, recognize when digital communication isn't sufficient. For important conversations requiring deep understanding, difficult feedback, conflict resolution, significant decisions, insist on richer communication channels. Choose video over text, phone over email, in-person over video when stakes are high. Your social intelligence tells you when the communication channel matches the importance of the message. Another future trend is the rise of artificial intelligence in our social interactions. We're increasingly interacting with chatbots, virtual assistants, and AI systems that simulate human conversation. Here's what's crucial. AI can simulate the surface of human interaction, but it fundamentally lacks the genuine consciousness, emotion, and intention that creates real connection. Your social intelligence allows you to recognize and value genuine human interaction in an age where the counterfeit becomes increasingly sophisticated. Paradoxically, as technology makes simulated interaction easier, genuine human connection becomes more valuable. In a world where you can have surface-level interactions with thousands through social media, the ability to build deep, authentic relationships with specific individuals becomes your competitive advantage and your source of meaning. Your social intelligence is the key to creating these deep connections. The future also brings evolving social norms around communication, relationships, and acceptable behavior. What's considered polite, appropriate, or professional is shifting, particularly across generational and cultural lines. Your social intelligence, particularly your ability to read context, adapt your approach, and understand diverse perspectives, positions you to navigate these shifting norms successfully. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of your journey in social intelligence is how it enhances not just your social success, but your sense of meaning and fulfillment. When you truly understand others, you experience profound connection. When you can read and respond to unspoken needs, you create moments of genuine care that matter deeply. When you build relationships based on authentic understanding, you create the foundation for lasting love, friendship, and collaboration. The skills you've developed serve far beyond personal success. In a world facing complex challenges that require collective action, climate change, political polarization, technological disruption, we desperately need people who can bridge divides, understand diverse perspectives, and facilitate genuine collaboration. Your social intelligence positions you to be a connector, a peacemaker, a leader who brings people together rather than driving them apart. Remember, the journey of mastering social intelligence is never complete. There will always be new situations that challenge your understanding, people who defy your categories, contexts that require new learning. Embrace this ongoing journey with curiosity and humility. Every interaction is an opportunity to practice, refine, and deepen your understanding of human nature. As we conclude this guide, I want to leave you with a final thought. The ultimate purpose of reading people is not to gain advantage over them, but to truly see them. In a world where most people feel unseen, misunderstood, and alone, your ability to genuinely perceive and understand others is a profound gift, both to them and to yourself. When you make someone feel truly seen and understood, you create a moment of real human connection. These moments are what we remember from our lives, not the transactions, not the achievements, but the times when we connected soul to soul with another human being. Your social intelligence creates more of these moments. So as you close these pages and step into the world, remember, you are now equipped with the ability to read people with remarkable accuracy. Use it wisely, use it ethically, and use it often. Build bridges of understanding between yourself and others. Create connections that matter. See beneath the surface to the complex, beautiful humanity in everyone you meet. Thank you for embarking on this journey of developing advanced social intelligence. Now go forth and truly see people, understand people, and connect with people in ways that transform both their lives and yours. The world is waiting for connectors like you. People who can cut through the noise, see past the masks, and build the genuine relationships that make life worth living. Your journey starts now.